Why did Tom sell his farm? Who did Tom sell his farm to? How much did Tom sell his farm for? When did Tom sell his farm? How long did it take Tom to sell his farm? How long did it take Tom to sell his farm once he decided to sell it? This isn't ready to sell yet. I'll eventually want to sell this guitar, but I think I'd like to keep it a little longer. If you really want your old guitar, I'll sell it back to you. I can sell it to Tom if you don't want it. Tom sold his company to one of his employees. I'm not the one who sold Tom that. I'm the one who sold that to Tom. This is mine to sell, not yours. What kind of things does Tom sell at street fairs? Tom sold all his land and gave the money to charity. These aren't hard to sell. These are easy to sell. I wasn't able to sell any of the stuff that Tom wanted me to sell for him. I wasn't able to sell any of the stuff Tom wanted me to sell for him. Tom sold all of his land and gave the money to charity. Those dolls weren't easy to sell, but I finally sold them all. Tom was able to buy a gun, but he couldn't buy any bullets for it. We expect to sell a lot more of these soon. Those dolls weren't easy to sell, but I finally sold all of them. I bet that we'll be able to sell a lot of these. I bet we'll be able to sell a lot of these. It should be easy to find a buyer for your house. Tom was able to buy a gun, but he wasn't able to buy any bullets for it. How do you know if you're in love with someone? How do you know if you're in love with somebody? The things on my porch are all things I'm trying to sell. Tom sold me 3 of his chickens. Tom sold 3 of his chickens to me. We've run out of things to sell. Now, how are we going to buy food? I miss the old building that used to be here. These sell well to tourists. The local people don't buy these, but the tourists do. You can only buy these in Australia. These aren't sold outside of Australia. This is very frightening. This is very scary. The only thing I drank was a cup of coffee. The only thing that I drank was a cup of coffee. This puzzle has a piece missing. I have a rowboat that you can borrow. They widened this road last year. I want to buy a trumpet. That's what I'm calling about. Someone stole my bicycle yesterday. Someone stole my bicycle yesterday. This is a book that I'd like to read. It's always hot this time of year. That was harder to do than I expected. That was softer than I expected. That wasn't as easy as I expected. That wasn't as easy to do as I expected. That was more difficult to do than I expected. Do you sell pots and pans here? Where can I buy a toaster? I'd like to buy a chopping board. I need to buy a spatula. I can't swim, but my brother can. We sell these around the world. Tom sold me some lakefront property. The boat that you want to buy has already been sold. You're the one who sold those to Tom, aren't you? If I have to, I'll sell one of my horses. Tom's books sell quite well. If we had waited, we could have sold that at a higher price. Tom is always trying to sell stuff to me. We used to come here as a family. You shouldn't even consider buying a car without airbags. Tom won't be able to walk home today. He sprained an ankle. Tom sold most of his belongings before he left for Australia. These should sell quickly. You promised me that you'd sell me that. You promised me you'd sell me that. You promised you'd sell that to me. You promised that you'd sell that to me. We've sold over 1 million copies of that book. Why does Tom want to sell it? I spent the whole week studying for that exam. Come on, get up. You're going to be late for school. Why aren't we allowed to fish in this river? We don't sell stuff like that. The toys Tom made sold like hotcakes at the flea market last week. To have a successful store, you have to sell people what they want. Tom had to sell his violin. If you want to read the full report, visit our website. I'd like to use this opportunity to thank you. People sell all kinds of things. You won't be able to sell that without lowering the price. You should stay in bed today. Tom didn't sell anything. I'll tell you if you promise that you won't get mad. I have a piece of riverfront property that I'd like to sell. I bought this piece of property hoping to build a house on it. If I had had a little more money, I could have bought something better. If I'd had a little more money, I could have bought a better one.